The Great Gatsby, A New Life in the East. Many years ago, my father gave me some advice which I have always remembered. When you are tempted to judge someone, try remember that many people have not had the same opportunities as yourself. He didn't elaborate any further. He didn't have to. I knew exactly what he meant. We had an unspoken understanding of one another. Because of his advice, I've always erred on the side of caution. This, in turn, caused me to become known as a non-judgmental sort of character who was then subjective to the mundane conversation of a good number of individuals. I was also a fairly labor politician, and whenever I felt another one going to confide me, I would often pretend to be asleep or just focus my attention elsewhere. Despite my privilege of ability understanding hearts of young men and my patience were a shortcoming, I realized that there are limits. I reached the point where I just wanted everyone of the same consistent value. I didn't care what those values were founded on. I just wanted you free of the burden of being forced to go into the mind, heart's father. Gatsby stood forever as I despised in life. Yeah, he is the only man whose problem, feelings, and emotion interested me. Gatsby was a remarkable man. He was filled with such promise and hope I've never seen anyone before. He possessed an amazing facet for romance, and I'm sure I'd never find such enthusiasm in anyone again. Gatsby achieved great success in life, but it was the road he took to the success that destroyed him. I heard that my family descended from Dukes of Buccleuch, but it was my grandfather's brother who started my family's business. He started Holden's hard work business in the Midwestern city. It has been my family for 3 generations, and my father still runs it today. People often comment that I look like my great-uncle, but I can only compare myself in single parts of him in thanks to my father's office. After graduating from Mid-Heavy in 1915, I fought in Great War. Despite the violence many experienced during the war, I enjoyed myself and did make it difficult for me to settle back into life in the Midwest. Because of this feeling, I decided to head east. I started trying my hand in the bond business. All the people I knew doing the same thing. I thought that I too might as well try and prosper dealing with bond. My family talked it over. They were concerned and very cautious, but eventually they all agreed. My father agreed to support me financially for a year until I got on my feet. After a lot of planning and several delays, I eventually came east in the year 1922. For me, it was going to be a permanent move. As soon as I arrived, there settled about finding semi-accommodation. I was used to have a large amount of space with lots of trees. So when another young man at the office suggested we share a house, I immediately agreed. He found a house rent for $80 a month, but then he suddenly transferred to Washington. I moved into the house along with the dog, which ran off a few days later. I bought an old dog and hired a Finnish woman to cook and clean for me. I felt like a lonely outsider for a while until a stranger stopped me in the street. He asked, "How do I get to West Egg Village?" I suddenly felt like one of the locals that I guided to its destination. A new feeling moved comfortably in my surroundings overcame me. I settled down to begin my main task of reading. I bought several volumes in finance, banking, and another subject related to my chosen field of work. I had the intention of reliving my college days, when I had been very well read. I even written a good number of editorials for a year near new. The neighborhood which I now found myself living was my own most interesting place, America. On a very narrow island just east New York, there are two very interesting land formations. They lie approximately 20 miles in the city. These are called the X. They are completely identical and only separated by a bay. They sit in what is known as Long Island Sound. Despite being completely identical in shape and size, these two eggs share many differences. I live on the west egg. This is the last fashionable sign, where residents are part in the new rich. These people have only recently become wealthy and dancing, are still trying to build up their identity to their upper class. My house is right at the end of the egg. It is located between two very large houses. These houses usually rented summer in the area of $12,000–$15,000 for the season. They host the last massive structure looks like a hotel built in Normandy. It was a fairly house, and the idea was just in the covering. At the back, there is a marble swimming pool, and behind it are a foliage of garden long. It was in this house the Gatsby resided. Of course, I didn't know him at that point. Compared to his magnificent daughters living and looked like a shambles. However, I was able to overlook this point. I had a magnificent year-round island sun. I could partly enjoy my neighbor's backyard, and I was loving shopping with millionaire. All this for the bargain price of only $80 a month. On a beautiful evening, I find myself driving over Cruise Bay, the Buchanan house. They lived on the east egg. Across the bay, I can see their mansion, which the light was sparkling in the water. It was quite a magnificent sight. Tom Buchanan lived in East Bay with his wife Daisy, who was my second cousin. I didn't know them very well, although I might have attended college with Tom. After I got back from the war, I spent a couple of days with them in Chicago. Tom was a very impressive man. Back in college in New Haven, Tom had been one of the most successful and powerful college football players. He excelled so greatly at the year 21 that every achievement he made after almost seemed like disappointment. He also came from an extremely wealthy family, and he always lived a very extravagant life. After marrying, Tom and Daisy have lived a very carefree life. They travel here and there, while other rich people played polo. It was quite surprising when he finally decided to come and settle in East. During a telephone conversation with Daisy, she told me that they would live permanently in East. I found it difficult to believe because I could not imagine Tom being happy in one place. He had lived the past few years in search of something that would replace exactly with medical for a year. The evening I drove Tom and Daisy home, it was quite morning, very windy. When I arrived at their house, I was really taken aback. Tom was very wealthy. but I could not imagine the extravagant house that I told about that evening. It was a lovely red and white Georgian colonial mansion. For about a quarter mile in front of it, lovely garden brick walks made their way down to the beach. It was covered in vine, and at the front there was a lined French window. They were all wide open to capture the afternoon wind. I pulled up the entrance and Tom standing on the top of the veranda. He was still in his riding clothes and he stood with the legs apart. He had aged since our college days, but he did not listen to size and strength. Under his riding clothes, I see his powerful muscles move. He was over 3 years of age. His eyes fair, his eyes still glowed the confident arrogance. His voice was deep and resonating. Whenever he spoke, his voice always conveyed contempt. This caused more than just a few people hate him. We were never very close in college, but despite that, I always got the impression he wanted to share more with the Queens. We stood on his veranda for some time. Looking around, he said, "This is very nice place here." He took my arm and hung around. We stood looking out over the ground. We looked out over the garden, his included an Italian garden, a half-an rose garden. All this belonged to the oilman, the man, Tom told me. "Why did you go inside now?" Tom took me through the front entrance and into a high hallway. This hallway led to a bright room lined the French window. These windows were open. They were trimmed wide in contrast with the immaculate lawn which seemed to make it all the way to the windows. The wind was still quite strong, and some curtains were fluffing about wind the other end of the room. I looked around, noticed that the only thing the wind was not affecting was Lana's couch. Two women were sitting at the end of it, and the skirts were so fluffing around. They were dressed in white. They looked like a balloon that almost tossed around by the wind. I stood there watching everything being blown around and towards the thundering sound of Tom closing the window. A trap the wind further stopped in its menace, and finally, everything in the room became calm. I was now able to examine two women more carefully. I had not met the younger of the two. She was completely stretched on her end of the couch. She was completely still, and with her chin pulled up a little, gave no hint that she is singing. I was taken aback by her attention, and I mumbled that apology for disturbing. Daisy was our coach. She laughed a little and leaned forward. I laughed a little too and came further into the room. "I'm so real to see you," she explained. She came over to me and gave her a little charming laugh. She took my hand, looked into my face, giving me the feeling that there was no one else on earth she would rather see. She whispered to me very quietly that the family name of the girl behind her was Baker. Daisy was known for whispering things quietly. I even been told she did it because she wanted people to lean in towards her. I looked behind Daisy and I saw Miss Baker was not having good remote ever since likely. Again, having felt out this story, I mumbled an apology. I looked at Daisy again, and she started asking me questions. She radiated that night, but she had a sad loveliness about her. Her eyes sparkled, and she spoke in an excited way that man could never forget. Her voice sang its compellment to listen. In an unspoken tone, her voice hinted at exciting things that she had experienced, and suggested the more excitement was on the horizon. I stopped on in Chicago for a while before I came east, I told her. All of your friends, your family asked me to send their love to you. Do they miss me? She cried. Of course they do. Everyone is mourning. Everyone painted the left rear on the back of their car, black as sign of mourning. You should hear them crying for you along the North Shore too, I said. Tom, let's go back there. We should go there tomorrow. Would you like to see the baby? She asked me. Of course, I love to see you, I said. She's sleeping at the moment. She's 3. Have you ever seen her? She asked. No, not once. Tom, who seemed bored by the conversation, came over and put his hand on my shoulder. So, what are you going to do, Nick? She asked me. I'm going to be working with Bun. Which company? He asked. I told him. He said, I've never heard of that. I was a bit offended by this, so I said, well, if you stay in East for any period of time, you will certainly hear of them. We'll certainly be staying East now, Tom said. As he spoke, he looked over Daisy, waiting for her reaction. We'd be stupid one to leave anyone else. Absolutely. It was Miss Baker who said that. She had not said anything the whole time we was there, and her contribution to the conversation took me quite by surprise. This suddenly sort of a common surprised her because she yawned, got up and said, Steve, I don't know how long I've been lying on the couch. Don't blame me, said Daisy. I've been trying to get me up so we could go to New York all afternoon. Just then, serving came up with a tray of full cocktail. No, thank you, said Miss Baker. I'm in training. Tom was surprised by this. You are? I can't believe that you ever get anything done. He took a drink and emptied it as if it were a nimmer full of water. I looked at Miss Baker, wondered what it was that she needed to get done. She was a very attractive girl. She was very petite with very good posture. She tended to throw her shoulders back. She had gray eyes. She looked at me curiously. I suddenly realized that I had seen her before. I understand you live in West Egg, she said. There was an undertone of disapproval in her voice. I know one person there. I haven't met anyone there yet, I said. You must know Gatsby, she said. Daisy interrupted at that point. Gatsby? What Gatsby? She demanded. Dinner was announced before I got the chance to say he was my neighbor. Tom took my arm and pushed me through toward dinner was being served. The two walked ahead of us and went out onto the veranda. The sun was setting, and 4 candles flickered on the table. Of course, the wind had completely eased by this time. We don't need candles yet, commented Daisy, who put them out immediately. Did you know that it will be the longest day here in about 2 weeks? She asked. I always wait for the longest day here and miss it. Should we blend do something on that day? Said Miss Baker, yawning. Good idea. What should we do? Daisy asked. I was about to say something, but then Daisy quickly said, Look, I hurt my finger. We all looked at her finger, which is black and blue. You did it, Tom, she excused. I know it was an accident, but you still did it. That's my punishment from marrying Hugh's hogging physical sample of even if admitted jokingly, I hate that word hogging, said Tom. Hogging, exclaimed Daisy. Hogging. What is hogging? I don't know, but I heard little bit crystal and I hear. So, 20 minutes and The Great Gatsby, Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Rumor of the Mysteries. The rumor of the mysterious. While we waited for dinner to be served, Daisy and Miss Baker were occasionally laughing to their own private conversation. Although the accepted presence of Tom meant they did little to entertain us, and they hardly responded to our efforts to entertain them. They seemed to casually accept the evening would come to a close. This was quite different to attitudes in West. Evening drews you hurry through the dreaded evening ever coming to an end. I feel quite uncivilized, aren't you, Daisy? I said to her. I wish you would talk about more every topic. Tom butted in before Daisy even got a chance to respond. Civilization just falling apart, Tom said abruptly. Have you ever heard of Arthur Goddard? He wrote a book titled The Rise of the Color Empire. Tom spoke quite roughly, surprised me. No, I haven't read it, I told him. You should. Writing is based the whole book on science. He says that the white race must be careful or be taken over by all the other races, Tom said. Tom likes to read a lot of books about the research subject. It's very deep, Daisy said. Tom looked at Daisy with shouldered nonsense and said, No, this book is scientific. The writer has all worked out. He could demonstrate how it would be possible for other races to rear up and dominate. We have to fight to maintain control. We will have to beat them kiss and mission. Daisy whispered me in the same time. Tom continued to talk. We all have Nordic background. You do, Nick. I do. Miss Baker doesn't, Sir Daisy. It is worse than civilization to create science and art. It always works together to make civilization. I looked at Tom and thought that he looked a bit pathetic. He was trying so hard to replace former complacency. I was in the middle of my thought when your telephone rang. The butler went inside to answer it. Daisy took the opportunity to whisper something to me. I want to tell you a secret. It's about the butler's nouns. Do you want to hear about it? She asked. It's the very reason why I came to visit, I said. It used to be a silver porch for some wealthy New York people. They had a silver service worth 200 people. It was job to polish the silver, but it is eventually a factory snow. Finally, he had to give up his job. I looked at Daisy and I noticed that her face was glowing. Her delicate voice almost forced me to lean in towards her. The butler reappeared and whispered something in Tom's ear. The expression on Tom's face changed. He frowned and got up without saying a word. Daisy almost seemed to become animated by Tom's departure from the table. She leaned closer to me and said, "Nick, it's wonderful to have you at my table. You almost resemble Ron. Doesn't he almost look like Slow?" she asked Baker. I felt that this was rather strange for Daisy. She made me feel comfortable with John's sincerity. Knock on the table. "Excuse me," went inside. Miss Bacon and I begged. What she could say. Shh. We listened to be tears and with the message. She get here better. We can continue to listen. At one point, we could understand most of what is being said, but then it became incoherent. I decided to try make some conversation, so I said, "You mentioned Mr. Gatsby earlier. He happened to be my neighbor. I want to hear what they say," Miss Baker said. "Is it any interest?" I asked. "You don't know?" she asked, looking very surprised. "I thought everyone knew." "I don't know anything," I told her. "Really? Tom has another woman in New York," she told me. I still rehearsed the question. "Another woman?" She nodded her head. "She doesn't even have the menu. It's not the call at dinner time," remarked Miss Baker. Miss Baker had only just finished speaking when Tom and Daisy returned to the dinner table. "Sorry for leaving you." "Apologize, Daisy." She sat down, looked at Miss Baker and then at me. Then she said, "I went outside for a minute. It's such a lovely evening. It's very romantic. I think there's a nightingale on the lawn at the moment. Tom isn't romantic. It's very romantic," he replied. He turned to me and said, "Why don't I take you down this table after dinner? It will steal some light." At that moment, the telephone rang. Daisy shook her head at Tom and door fell off stable was forgotten. It was a very uncomfortable moment. I remember the candor when little gang gave everyone aboard looking at Tom and Daisy. Even Miss Baker, who hadn't ever seen anything about her, would not have been able to know the existence of the uninvited fifth guest that evening. Dinner finally came to an end, and Tom and Miss Baker walked slowly back into the house. Daisy and I walked around outside the house door along a maze connecting verandas. We stopped the porch in the front where we ended up sitting on Rico's key. Daisy leaned forward, put her chin in the hand like she was pondering some great mystery. I knew their feeling must be been in turmoil, so I decided to ask her some question about her young daughter. She suddenly spoke, however. "We are cousins. We don't even know each other very well. Why didn't you come to my wedding?" she asked. "I was overseas because of the war," I said. "I suppose I've been having a terrible time. I've become very skeptical about absolutely everything," she told me. I could certainly understand why she felt that way. I waited for her to continue to speak, but she didn't. I made another attempt at asking her about her little girl. "She does everything every other child does, I suppose. She talks now." "I guess she everything too," I said. "Yes, she does, Daisy told me. Can you imagine what I said she was born? Do you want me to tell you? Yes, please tell me, I said. It will show you how cynical I am on everything right now. I have no idea of where Tom was when she was born. She was only about it on our own when I woke up. I asked nurse whether my child was a boy or a girl, and she told me it was a girl. I started crying. There were, I said. I have a daughter. I hope she is really quite stupid. Oh, they the best thing for a woman to be in this world. I hope she is the gorgeous boy. Everything in life is dreadful, Daisy said. I know that everyone feels the same way. People at Barnes Country do anyway. I've been to all of them, and everyone feels the same way about things that I do. I've seen everything and done everything. She let her laugh fill the reason. God, aren't you sophisticated? I'm so sophisticated. At that, she stopped speaking, and it is only then that I realized she was being sarcastic. I suddenly felt uncomfortable, and that the evening had run a plan to extort some sympathetic feelings from me. I looked at her, and suddenly a sneer appeared on her face. It was like she emphasizing her association, some secret organization, something. Daisy and I eventually drifted into the room and Tom and Miss Baker were. They were each in on the long couch. She was reading to Tom in Saturday Evening Post. Her voice was both melodious and comforting. Just behind them, a lamp gave off lovely light which reflected the lovely autumn tone of her hair. As she turned the page of the paper, the movement of muscle resource accentuating light. Daisy and I walked in the room and she immediately held up her hand, signaling for us to be quiet. Soon after she said, "To be continued in the next installment." While she threw the magazine down, she adjusted her position and then stood up. "It's already 10 o'clock. It's time those girls go to bed. Jordan has a match tomorrow," explained Daisy. "She's going to play in the tournament at Westchester." Now I suddenly knew why she looked so familiar to me when I first saw her. "Oh, you're Jordan Baker," I said. I had seen her face on many magazines before. Her cynical yet very pleasant face had been at me many times. I seen her picture magazines such as Hot Spring, Palm Beach, and Nashville. I also heard seen stories where one of them was not flattering at all, but I couldn't remember at all what it was about. "Make sure wake me at it, all right?" she said. "If you can get you up." "Oh, get up for sure. Good night. Mr. Carraway, it was nice to meet you. See you again." "You most definitely will. I think it would be wonderful if I arrange a marriage between you two. Why don't you come over often then? I'll accidentally lock you two up or push you out into the sea. You know, force you together, that kind of thing." "Good night," Miss Baker said again wholly. "I didn't hear what you just said." "She's a good girl," Tom commented. "I'm surprised that her roam around the country as she does." Daisy looked at me angrily and said, "Who do you mean by they?" "Her family. Her family consists of one aunt who was born centuries ago. You needn't worry because Nick is here now. You look after her, won't you, Nick? She's going to be lots of time here during this summer. I think it will do her the world of good." Tom and Daisy looked at each other. I sensed an awkward feeling and quickly said, Is Miss Baker from New York? No, she isn't. She's from Rudale. We spent our girlhood there together. Our beautiful wine. So when you're out on the veranda, did you have frank discussion together? Tom asked Daisy. Daisy looked at me and asked, Did we? We talked about all sorts of things. I think at one point we even talked about Nordic race. You know how easy it is to move from one subject to You can't believe everything ever tells you, Nick, Tom said to me. I haven't heard anything at all, I said to me light-hearted fashion. I think it's about time I'll be going home. We all stood up together, walked me out of the house. They were in the doorway to see me out. I turned the engine on it. The Great Gatsby. What kind are they? Asked Mrs. Wilson eagerly as he came to the taxi window. All kinds. What kind do you want, lady? I'd like to get one of those policy dogs. I don't suppose you got that kind. The man peered doubtfully into the basket, plucked in his hand and drew one up, wriggling by the back of the neck. That's no police dog, said Tom. No, it's not exactly a police dog, said the man with disappointment in his voice. It's more of an Aerodolin. He passed his hand over the brown wash rug of a bed. Look at that coat. Some coat that a dog that will never bother you with catching cold. I think it's cute, said Miss Wilson enthusiastically. How much is it? The dog? He looked at it admiringly. The dog will cost you $10. The Adeline, undoubtedly. There was an Adeline concerned in it somewhere, though its feet will startlingly changed hands and settled down into Miss Williams' lap, where she fondled the weatherproof coat it raptured. Is it a boy or a girl? She asked. Is it a boy or a girl? She asked delicately. The dog's a boy. The dog's a boy. It's a bitch, said Tom decisively. Here's your money. Go and buy 10 more dogs with it. We drove over the Fifth Avenue, warm and soft, almost postular. On the summer Sunday afternoon, I wouldn't have been surprised to see a great fleck of white sheep turn the corner. Hi, hold on, I said. I have to leave you here. No, you don't, interposed Tom quickly. Miss Riddle will hurt if you don't come up to the apartment. What you? Miss Toad? Miss Myrtle? Come on, she urged. I will telephone my sister Catherine. She is said to be very beautiful by people who ought to know. Well, I'd like to, but we went on, cutting back again over the park toward the West 100 at 158th Street. The car stopped at one slice in a long white cake of apartment houses. Throwing a regal homecoming glance around the neighborhood, Miss Wilson gathered up her dog and her other purchases and went hauntedly in. I'm going to have the McCanns come up, she announced as we rose in the elevator, and of course I got to call up my sister too. The apartment was on the top floor, a small living room, a small dining room, a small bathroom, and a bath. The living room was crowded to the doors with a set of tapestried furniture entirely too large for it, so that to move about was to stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the gardens of Versailles. The only picture was an over-enlarged photograph, apparently a hand sitting on a blooded rock, looked at from a distance. However, the hand resolved itself into a bonnet, and the countenance of a stout old lady beamed down into the room. Several old copies of town title lay on the table, together with a copy of Simon, Colt, Peter, and some of the small scandal amazings of Broadway. Mrs. Wilson was first connected with the dog. A reluctant elevator boy went for a box full of straw and some milk, to which he added on his own initiative a tin of large hard dog biscuits, one of which decomposed apathetically in the saucer of milk all afternoon. Meanwhile, Tom brought out a bottle of whiskey from a Roxbury's door. Bureaurador. I have been drunk just twice in my life. I have been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was that afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy coast over it. Dim hazy coast over it. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. Sitting on Tom's lap, Miss Wilson called up several people on the telephone. Then there were no cigarettes, and apartment was full of cheerful sun. I like this expression. I have been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was the afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy coast over it. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. Sitting on Tom's lap, Miss Wilson called up several people on the telephone. Then there were no cigarettes, and I went out to buy some at the drugstore on the corner. When I came back, they had both disappointed. So I sat down discreetly in the living room and read a chapter of a sermon called Peter. Either it was terrible stuff or whiskey distorted things, because it didn't make any sense to me. Just as Tom and Myrtle, after the first drink, Miss Willem and I called each other by our first name. Reappeared company commanded to arrive at the apartment door. The sister, Catherine, was a slender, worldly girl of about 30 with a solid, sticky bob of red hair and a complexion powdered milky white. Her eyebrows had been plucked and then drawn on again at a more risky angle, but the effort of nature toward the restoration of the old elegant gave me blonde air to her face. When she moved about, there was an incessant clicking as innumerable pottery bracelets jingled up and down upon her arms. She came in with such a propriety haste and rocked around so passively at the furniture that I wondered if she lived here. But when I asked her, she laughed immoderately repeated my question around and told me she lived with a girl friends at a hotel. Mr. McKay was a pale, feminist man from the flat below. He had just shaved, for there was a white spot of leather on his cheekbone, and he was most respectful in his greeting to everyone in the room. He informed me that he was in the artist game, and I gathered later that he was a photographer and had made the dim enlargement of Mrs. Willing's mother, which hovered like an epithalams on the wall. His wife was shrinking, languid, handsome, and horrible. She told me with pride that her husband had photographed her 127 times since they had been married. Mrs. Wilson had changed her costume some time before, and was now attired in an elaborate afternoon dress of cream-colored chiffon, which gave out a continual lustre as she swiped about the room. With the influence of the dress, her personality had also undergone a change. The intense vitality that had been so remarkable in the garage was converted into impressive her laughter, her gestures, her ancestral became more violently affected moment by moment, and as she expanded, the room grew smaller around her until she seems to be revolving on a noisy, cracking pivot through the smoky air. "My dear," she told her sister in a high, mincing shout. Moment by moment, at Tompinis, a search game. Most of these fellas will test you every time. All they think of is money. I had a woman up here last week to look at my feet, and when she gave me the bill, you'd have thought she had my appendix out. What was the name of the woman? asked Mrs. Mickey. Mr. Bernhardt. She goes around looking at people's feet in their own homes. "I like your dress," remarked Mrs. Mickey. "I think it's adorable." Mr. rejected the compliment by raising her eyebrow in disdain. "It's just a crazy old thing," she said. "I just slip it on sometimes when I don't care what I look like, but it looks wonderful on you. If you know what I mean," persisted Miss Mackey. "If Chester could only get you in that pose, I think he could make something of it." We all looked in silence at Miss Wooling, who removed a strand of hair from over her eyes and looked back at us with a brilliant smile. Mr. Mackey regarded her intently with his head on one side and then moved his band back and forth slowly in front of his face. "I should change the light," he said after a moment. "I'd like to bring out the modeling of the features, and I'd try to get hold of all the back hair. I wouldn't think of changing the light," cried Miss Mackey. "I think it." Her husband said, "Shh," and we all looked at the subject again. Whereupon Time Bunchman yelled audibly and got to his feet. "You Mackins have something to drink," he said. "Get something more ice and mineral water, sparkling water, fizzy water." Yesterday I learned about water, sparkling water. We can call fizzy water, soda water. Miss Miracle, before everybody goes to sleep, I told that boy about the eyes. Miracle raises her eyebrows is despair at the shiftlessness of the raw orders, moment by moment. "These people, you have to keep after them all the time." She looked at me and laughed pointlessly. Then she flounced over to the dog, kisses it with ecstasy, and swiped into the kitchen, implying that a dog's chef awaited her order there. "I've done some nice things out on Long Island," asserted Mr. Mackey. Tom looked at him blankly. "Two of them we have found downstairs." "Two what?" demanded Tom. "Two studies. One of them I called Montauk Point, the girls, and the other I called Montauk Point, the sea." The sister Catherine sat down beside me on the couch. Do you live down on Long Island too?" she inquired. "I live at West Egg." "Really? I was down there at a party about a month ago at a man named Gatsby. Do you know him? I live next door to him." I live next door to him. Well, they say he's a nephew or a cousin or Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where his money comes from. Really? She nodded. I'm scared of him. I do hate to have him get anything on me. This absorbing information about my neighbor was interrupted. Miss McKenzie, pointing suddenly at Catherine. Chester, I think you could do something with her, she broke out, but Mr. McKean only nodded in a bored way and turned his attention to Tom. I'd like to do more work on Long Island if I could get the entry. All I ask is that they should give me a start. Ask merely, said Tom, breaking into a shouts of laughter as Miss Wilson entered with a tray. She'll give you a letter of introduction. Want you, Miss? Want you, Myrtle? Do what? She asked, startled. You will give McKill a letter of introduction to your husband, so he can do some studies of him. Do what? She asked, startled. You will give me a letter for introduction to your husband, so he can do some studies of him. His lips moved silently for a moment by moment, as his invented jaws beat. Wilson at the Garson line pump or something like that. Catherine leaned close to me and whispered in my ear, neither of them can stand the person they're married to, can't they? Can't stand them. She looked at Myrtle. She looked at Myrtle. She where am I? Can they? Myrtle. She looked at Myrtle and then at Tom. What I say is, why go on living with them if they can't stand them? If I was them, I'd get a divorce and get married to each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either? The answer to this was unexpected. It came from Myrtle, who had overheard the question, and it was violent and obsessing. You see, cried Catherine triumphantly. She lowered her voice again. It's really his wife that's keeping them apart. She's a Catholic. And they don't believe in divorce. Daisy was not a Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the line. When they do get married, continued Catherine, when they get married, they're going west to live for a while until it blows over. It will be more discreet to go to Europe. Oh, do you like Europe? She exclaimed surprisingly. I just get back from Monte Carlo. Really? Just last year I went over there with another girl. Stay long? No, we just went to Monte Carlo and back. We went by way of Marseilles. We had over $1,200 when we started, but we got gymped out of it all in 2 days in the private rooms. We had an awful time getting back. I can't tell you, God, how I hate that town. The late afternoon sky bloomed in the window for a moment like the blue honey of the Mediterranean. Then the shrilling voice of Miss Mackey called me back into the room. I almost made a mistake too, she declared vigorously. I almost married a little Turkey who's been after me for years. I knew he was below me. Everybody kept saying to me, "Look, Lucille, that man's way below you." But if I hadn't met Hester, had of got me sure. Yes, but listen, said Myrtle Wilson, nodding her head up and down. At least you didn't marry him. I know I didn't. Well, I married him, said Myrtle ambiguously, and that's the difference between your case and mine. That's the difference between your case and mine. Why did you Myrtle, demanded Catherine. Nobody forces you to, Myrtle considered. I married him because I thought he was a gentleman, she said finally. I thought he knew something about breeding, but he wasn't fit to lick my shoe. You were crazy about him for a while, said Catherine. Crazy about him, cried Myrtle incredibly. Who said I was crazy about him? I never was any more crazy about him than I was about them men there. She pointed suddenly at me, and everyone looked at me accusingly. I tried to slow by my expression that I expected no affection. The only craze I was when I married him. I knew right away I made a mistake. He borrowed somebody's best suit to get married in and never even told me about it. And the man came after it one day when he was out. Oh, is that your suit? I said. This is the first I ever heard about it. But I gave it to him, and then I lay down and tried to beat the band all afternoon. She really ought to get away from him, resumed Catherine to me. They've been living over that garage for 11 years, and Tom's the first sweet she ever had. The bottle of whiskey, a second one, was now in constant demand by all present, excepting Catherine, who felt just as good on nothing at all. Tom rang for the janitor and sent him for some celebrated sandwiches, which were a complete supper in themselves. I wanted to get out and walk toward the park through the soft twilight, but each time I tried to go, I became entangled in some wild strident argument which pulled me back as if with ropes into my chair. Yet high over the city, our line of yellow windows must have contributed their share of human sincerity to the casual watcher in the darkening street. And I saw him too, looking up and wondering. I was without simultaneously enchanted, repelled by the inexhaustible variety of life. Milt put her chair close to mine, and suddenly her warm breath poured over me. The story of her first meeting with Tom. It was on the two little seats facing each other that are always the last one left on the train. I was going up to New York to see my sister and spend the night. He had on the dress, suit, and patent leather shoes, and I couldn't keep my eyes off him. But every time he looked at me, I had to pretend to be looking at the advertisement over his head. When we came into the station, he was next to me, and his shirt white shirt front passed against my arm, and so I told him I'd have to call a policeman, but he knew I lied. I was so excited that when I got into the taxi with him, I didn't hardly know I wasn't getting into the subway train. All I kept thinking about over and over was, "You can't live forever. You can't live forever." She turned to Miss Mackey, and the room rang full of her artificial laughter. "My dear," she cried, "I'm going to give you this dress as soon as I'm through with it. I've got to get another one tomorrow. I'm going to make a list of all the things I've got to get. A message and a wave and a collar for the dog, and one of those cute little ashtray where you touch a spring, and whether with a black silk bowl for mother's graves that will last all summer. I got to write down a list. So I won't forget all the things I got to do. It was 9 o'clock. Almost immediately afterward, I looked at my watch and found it was 10. Mr. Mackey was asleep on a chair with his fist clenched in his lap, like a photographer of a man of action. Taking out a handkerchief, I wiped from his cheek the spot of dried leather that had worried me all the afternoon. The little dog was sitting on the table looking with blind eyes through the smoke, and from time to time groaning faintly. People reappeared, made plans to go somewhere, and then lost each other. Searching for each other, found each other a few feet away. Sometime toward midnight, Tom Bunchman and Miss Wilson stood face to face, discussing in impatient voice whether Miss Wilson had any right to mention Daisy's name. "Daisy, Daisy, Daisy!" shouted Miss Wilson. "I will say it whenever I want. Daisy, Daisy!" Making a shout deaf movement, Tom Burns Butcherman broke her nose with his open hand. Then there were Blondie twirled open the bathroom floor, and women's voices scolding and high over the confusion, a long broken wail of pain. Miss Mackey awoke from his doze and started in a daze toward the door. When he had gone halfway, he turned around and stared at the scene. His wife and gathering, scolding, and consoling as they stumbled here and there among the crowded furniture with articles of ad and the despairing figure on the couch, breathing fluently and trying to spread a copy of Town Toto over the tapestry, sense of Basilici. Then Mr. Mackey turned and continued on out the door, taking my hat from the calendar. Calendar. I followed. Come to lunch someday. Come to lunch someday, he suggested as he grounded as we grounded down in the elevator. Where? Anywhere. Keep your hands off the level. Snapped the elevator bell. I beg your pardon, said Mr. Mackey with Jan dignity. I didn't know I was touching it. All right, I agreed. I would be glad to. I was standing basic his bed, and he was sitting up between the seat, clad in his underwear within great portfolio in his hand. Beauty and the Beast, loneliness, old grocery house, Brooklyn Bridge. Then I was lying half asleep in the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the morning Tribune and waiting for the 4 o'clock train. Now is chapter 3, but I need to check the time. I recording 47 minutes, almost 48. But chapter 3, do I need to keep going or not? I'm not sure. Just take a review is the better choice, because I felt is keep reading is not good efficient. Just check the before something, and then it's better to remember and keep good method to remember, recall like that, because I saw something very curiosity and very interesting. 시시각각으로, moment by moment. Okay, this is good. 시시각각으로. When I can use directly. I can use it. This phrase today, right now. Also, when I'm host in the high local at the time I can use as well. Gather. 신령체. Ectoplasm. Moment by moment. Siphon. Alright, I know siphon. Makes sense. I wonder if she lived her very exciting some sentence because like my story. I have been drunk just once in my life, I guess, because I almost died at the bathroom and I puked a lot and maybe twice with Jaewon, and yeah, let me think. I need to check up. It's pretty cool. I don't like drink. Maybe, but I should drink to talk. I wanna talkative. I wanna break by myself. So I have been drunk. I have been drunk just once. I have been drunk just twice in my life. This is 78 page. 78 page. And the second time was the afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy coast over it. So dim has cover over it. Dim, beam. I never heard, but pretty interesting. Because I always like smile radiantly. Smile radiantly. Beam. Where is the beam? Source of milk or the meanwhile Tom brought out the bottled whiskey from the locked room door. Beam. I couldn't find. Take your time. Maybe I need to reread. So disappear, reappear, disappear, reappear. And also apartment is pretty cool. Apartment was full of cheerful sun. Apartment is 8 o'clock. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of cheerful sun. I was full of cheerful energy. I was full of cheerful energy. I can send full. I'm full of cheerful energy. Energetic energy. I'm full of cheerful. I'm full of cheerful. I'm full of cheerful energy. Sitting a Tom in. I wanna using that sentence. I have been drunk just twice in my life. I've been drunk just twice in my life. Apartment full of cheerful sun. Page 8. I wonder if she lived here. Makes sense. Worldly, caring much for the material affairs of life. Worldly pleasure. Maybe I have no worldly pleasure. That's why still naive. Lekishi. make sense. Telephone, and I went out by some of the drugstore on the corner. When I came back, that had both disappeared, and I sat down discreetly in the living room and read the chapter of Simon called Peter. Where is the make sense? I need to make sense. And then I will keep reading, make sense. Drugstore had both disappeared, the living room, and I didn't make any sense to me. I didn't make sense. I didn't make any sense to me. I didn't make any sense to me. Either it was trouble stuff and whiskey distort thing. It didn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. 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 I'm full of cheerful energy. I'm full of cheerful. I'm full of cheerful, positive energy, happiness, energy. It was a pale feminist, so 영매의 몸에서 발산하는 신령체, ectoplasm, moment by moment, step by step, moment by moment. Her eccentricity became more violently affected moment by moment. Moment by moment. Moment by moment. Her eccentricity becomes more violent to affect moment by moment. I'm not using that phrase. So cool. I think he could make something of it. Bring out. I think it's adorable. I like your dress, remarks Miss Mackin. I like your dress. I think it's adorable. Most of these fellows will check you every time. All they think of is money. I had a woman up here last week to look at my feet, and when she gave me the bill, you'd thought she had my appendictures out. Appendictures in disdain. I think he could make something of it. Moment by moment, 시시각각. Montague, the rule or shiftlessness. Shiftlessness. Don't be shiftlessness. Thank you so much. Time's up. Oh my god, finally.